Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Well, Why Not? So the title of this episode may seem like a departure from my normal topics, but I promise you that it's not. And I'm actually very excited to talk about reality TV, which is one of my favorite pastimes for a long time. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So I first want to say that I have been a fan of reality TV in general since I feel the genre first came about. I remember watching The Real World as a teenager and being enthralled and just fascinated by this idea of cameras just watching people living their lives. Since then, of course, it's become a lot more scripted, although it's still, considered unscripted TV, but it has evolved, and I can't say that I like all of them, but one series that I still am a big fan of are the Real Housewives franchises, and some of them more than others. Some of them I have gone 4 or 5 years without watching, and then have fallen back in. Right now, I'd say my favorites are Atlanta, Potomac, Beverly Hills, which I never watched. I didn't watch probably the first 8 seasons of it, 9 seasons maybe, but recently. OC. I watched that from the very beginning. It was the first one, and then I stopped watching for several years, and I've just started watching it again. And I know there have been several. Oh yes, how could I forget Miami, which just got rebooted this year, and actually I think it's on its second season since being rebooted. I never watched it the first go, but I am really enjoying this reboot, even if it has a lot of the people from the original. But I don't know. It seems like it's the general consensus. A lot of people are much happier this time around. Now, today's episode is focused specifically on the Real Housewives of Dubai. And of course, this franchise was a surprise, was controversial because it's Dubai, because there are so many human rights violations there. Also, the producer, Andy Cohen, who is openly gay, and knowing that it is illegal there, and that brought about a lot of comments and a lot of criticisms, but obviously they still decided to go forward with it. And I actually thought that was brave, and that was it was smart. I mean, a smart business move for one thing, but also it just kind of goes back to this idea of why should we shy away from something that's different? And I think history has shown us that things don't change when people don't know about them. It's almost like, shining light on something and speaking openly about it. That's if you are hoping to improve the situation, that's the way to do it. Shying away from the actual, shunning them and never displaying anything from that culture or from that country, I don't see how that would help in terms, if that is the intent. The intent is to quote unquote help, quote unquote change some of their laws and their traditions, really, then it has to be talked about. There has to be that mirror reflected on the issue. So that is my 2 cents. And of course, I feel like it's had 2 seasons. No, it's only had 1 season, right? And it has been, I think it was a pretty successful season considering, but there have been others that have started off well and then dipped off. But as I watched that first season, each person, because I think obviously all of the ladies on that show are immigrants, are expats in Dubai. And even those who, have similar cultures, are, of Arabic descent or are practicing Muslims, it's still, they are still, expats. And I know that Dubai, it's pretty much 90% of the population is immigrants, which is, I think, makes it a fascinating place just because of that. And what does that mean? And how do all those cultures come together and coexist? And I have heard a lot. I have read a lot. I think a lot of those questions also are answered in the series. You could kind of see the dynamic, who is, that whole debate about what is an expat versus an immigrant. I think it's very clear, even though to me it's interchangeable. All of those ladies are immigrants, all of those ladies are expatriates, but it tends to be immigrants are the ones who come looking for economic opportunity. A lot of those ladies did the same thing. They moved to Dubai because of business opportunities that they identified. But I guess now we start to slice and dice it in terms of, well, what kind of economic opportunity are you looking for? A service job, or are you looking to start $1 million business? And again, to me, one and the same. I am going to talk about each of the ladies. So if you haven't seen it, I hope that I talk enough that you get a sense of the type of person I'm trying to describe. And then for those of you who have seen it, I'd be eager to hear what your take is on each of these ladies. And again, my observation is from the expat lens. And overall, what I saw with this group, I thought, this is the typical, they all, like, each of them individually represent somebody that I have met, in my years as an expat. Like, there's always one, and not to stereotype, but again, I think, part of the allure and part of the entertainment of reality TV is sort of playing or leaning into, stereotypes. And, at this point, I think all reality TV, especially the Real Housewives franchises, it's more about it's about the drama, right? It's about like who can be messy and who can gossip the most and who could come with the one-liners, and always in a negative way. So that already is the stereotype of a group of women being friends in these series. And then I just think that with Dubai, you have that added layer of, this is what the typical this type of expat will act like. And this is just my opinion. And of course, again, we know this is so edited and we're not getting the full picture of these ladies, nor I don't think they're expecting that. And that's something that they often say when they talk about the seasons, and how, editing didn't show this, and there was a conversation that led up to this moment and all of that. So this is just based on the edited season that we all had the privilege of enjoying last year. The first housewife that I'm going to talk about is Carolyn Brooks. And it was hard to get a good read on her, I'd have to say. I think what stuck out to me in all her interactions and just seeing her with her son, she hasn't really immersed herself in the culture, and it looks like she's trying to create her own bubble within her new country or her host country. And I think that is very typical, especially when somebody has the means to do that. So it's clear that, from her, I think from her ex-husband, she had the means, and she was able to build a business that is pretty successful. It's hard to tell on these series too, as we are seeing with Salt Lake. Like, people put on the show, right, and they make it, and I actually think it's a pressure that's been created throughout the years and how reality TV has evolved, especially this franchise in particular. But I digress. Now, Carolyn Brooks, I also think that there is some childhood baggage. And I don't even like to use the word baggage, but I don't know if I could qualify it as trauma. But there are some things from her childhood and from her upbringing that she is, it's showing up in the way that she's raising her child. It's showing up in I think in the way that she reacts to certain situations. And that is also very typical. So, and I say, and I think I've mentioned this about when I talked about when you expatriate, you only become more of what you already are. So if you are somebody who has not dealt with issues with past, just hurt feelings or whatever that may be, and then you pick up and start a new life in a brand new environment, in a brand new country with brand new people, oftentimes you will start to see the same issues that you are having in your home country, you are going to be having with people in your host country. And it may take some time. It may actually show itself in a different way just because it's a different context. But at the root of it, you'll see it's the same issues. If you have a hard time trusting people in your home country, you're going to have a hard time trusting people in your host country. If you don't like, or if you have an insecurity about and you feel judged, it's just going to show. So that's what I saw with her, and some of her conflicts with the other ladies. I just rooted it back to, you didn't heal this before becoming an expat, and I don't think it's obviously it's not a requirement, it's not a prerequisite. If you're going to expatriate, you need to make sure that you are going as a whole person. It's just highly recommended so that you are not you're not continuing that cycle, because a lot of times that's what you were trying to escape in the first place, right? So the second housewife that I want to talk about is Sarah. And so Sarah is a person, her character, let's say, is, she's the enlightened one, and she's done all this personal work and healing. And because of that, and she's traveled extensively, and she's lived this extraordinary life according to her. And instead of letting that experience and letting her healing just let her be, who she is, and sort of influence how she carries herself, I feel like I'm verbalizing this in the wrong way, but basically I feel like that's a good thing. It's a good thing that she's traveled a lot. It's a good thing that she's made the efforts to heal herself. The issue becomes where she's expecting others to have done the same thing, or when others have not done the same thing, she feels it's her place to recommend that they do, or and that's why I think she comes off as very judgmental. Again, I have met Sarah. I know several Sarahs where based on how that person arrived to their current location, that is how their calling card or their business card is all about, I've been to this place, and when I was in Bali for 6 months, and when I did that, and it's like, that's great for you. But are we really establishing any sort of relationship when our conversations are based around what you have done, what you have accomplished, and all this that you've overcome? Now, and it would come out eventually. I think as you build genuine relationships over time and people ask you specifics about your life, then you have, the floor, and it's within the right context, and it's not taken as, are you trying to tell me because I didn't do what you did that I'm somehow missing? Because it really is the tone. And I know for her, oftentimes when she had her conflicts based around that, she always comes from a place of, that's not how I meant it, or I didn't say it like that. I was just sharing, or, it's in her mind coming from an innocent place. But I think someone like her, it's hard for her to realize how people receive the information and to let that have more weight. That's personal. That's like personal development right there. 101. It's fine to have your intent. And I'm only saying this, with good intentions. And I'm only sharing this with the intent of helping or doing something good. But if it's not being received that way, then you failed, and you need to rethink why you keep sharing it, even though it's being received in another way every single time. And maybe, and every single time, who knows, maybe out of 50 times, 20 of them it's well received. But I feel like if you're hearing this feedback over and over, then you should be rethinking your approach. So yeah, that is, but again, I know several Sarahs. And then the next housewife is Carolyn Stanbury. And I actually saw her when she was in Ladies of London. And I don't know why that one didn't do well. It was only on, I feel like, for one season, maybe 2 seasons tops. Maybe the ratings weren't that well. But sometimes I think a lot of this has to do with timing. Same reason why like Miami didn't do well before, but it's doing well now. Sometimes it's just, just the timing of it all. So the little that I saw, it was so long ago, I didn't remember a lot about her from Ladies of London. But then I remember hearing that she had made this move, and then subsequently, of course, because she was considering joining this cast, they started talking. Then it came out that she had gotten divorced since moving to Dubai and all of that. So I look at Carolyn, gosh, she is a bit disconnected as well. I think she is a little similar to Carolyn Brooks in that she has just created this bubble, and she has this lifestyle that does not reflect at all. I don't want to say it doesn't reflect where she lives, because obviously Dubai is known for its opulence and for the wealth, but I'm talking more about like cultural. Has she adjusted her way of being to her new environment? I don't think so. And I think for the most part, these ladies go to places that are expat friendly, go to places where they can act the way that they want to act, or the way that they would act in their home countries, without judgment, without repercussion. And then I feel like their social circles are also people that are very similar to them. And so that's where I feel like people miss out a lot of times. Expats will miss out because of the urge to create or to gravitate towards the familiar. Then how much do you really know about local culture? And I think in a place like Dubai, where the majority are immigrants, it is obviously going to look different. I'm not expecting you to really build strong ties with a local, but there are so many different cultures represented. I see them as, and especially in the case of Carolyn Stanbury, where she appears that she was elite coming from England, from the UK. I mean, she went to boarding school, and so she had this very different life even in her home country. So it makes sense. I totally understand this need to, okay, I'm going to move, but I need to maintain this standard. And this is a very nuanced thing, because I think you can maintain a standard but still immerse yourself. I think you can maintain a standard, a quality, or a level of spending, or whatever it is that you're accustomed to, but still be mindful of the new environment and still make an effort to make connections with people who are different than you. That's what I think she specifically, she misses out on. That I even when she brings in, now this cast was purposely made to be diverse, but when she brings around her friends, like her real life friends, you can see that they're very similar to her. They're from, her community, let's say. And so that is very typical of an expat. So that's like, it's beyond saying like I know several Carolyns. I know it's just a very easy thing to do, and at all social levels. It's not just people who are extremely wealthy. I think it's just people go looking for the people that in this. So even within expat communities, like you may gravitate to somebody, I'm an American, you're an American, let's hang out. And then once you realize, but this person is from the Midwest and grew up on a farm and didn't really have the same experiences as me, I may seek out another expat. I may not feel as close to that expat, even though we're from the same country, and I want the expat that had a similar lifestyle to me. So that's a mistake. Again, it takes effort to get out of that, but it's a mistake. I think you can have such a much more enriching experience if you don't do that. And now I will talk about Nina. I think Nina is the most genuine. I think she recognizes that she has, good fortune, and she is, very very wealthy. She doesn't downplay it, but I feel like it's subdued. It's not over the top. It's not, I'm going to show you, I'm going to put this all out there. There's a lot. She talks a lot about gratitude. I actually think that I saw today that she won't be returning for another season, which is interesting. It's not surprising because, again, I think because she is the most genuine, again, she has the similarities in culture. I don't think she's a practicing Muslim, but I may be wrong. And, but she just is a very low key, and even though she had a little bit of conflict and got wrapped up in some of the drama, she would always kind of bring it back to like, this is not how we act. And I felt like when the way that she spoke, it seemed just genuine. It didn't seem like she was putting on a show either way. She wasn't like pretending to be a certain way or more subdued, because I think she naturally is that way. I think her wanting to be a peacekeeper, a lot of times that is just her nature. And that may not be what the show is looking for. Knowing how this franchise works, they may be looking for somebody with more of a quote unquote storyline. And then we'll talk about Chanel. Chanel is a party within herself. I mean, what I found really interesting about her is I felt like she had this added layer of refugee. So it's like whether, I do use immigrant and expat interchangeably, but refugee is a whole other thing. Somebody who had to flee their home country because of danger, because their life was in danger. And when she shares about that, I think you get a different view, or you get a little bit more insight to who she is and why she's that way. So even though the whole over the top, I cannot say that I know Chanel's. I have not had the privilege of meeting someone like Chanel during my expat experience, but I just think that her being boisterous and just believing it, she really, really believes in herself and has really high self-confidence. But then you can see, her layers of vulnerability. That is all tied to her experience as a child and as a refugee. And I would like, which I doubt they would, because, that's not completely entertaining, but I would love for them to delve more into that. I would love for her to go visit, if possible, go or visit family, even if she can't go back to her home country, but visit her family to see her dynamics with her family. I think there was on one episode, she was talking to her sister, and that was really sweet. But I think there's just a lot there, and she talks a lot about her past. She's very open about it, which is endearing, which is really helpful, again, into understanding who she is and why she's the way she is. Now, Lisa, I look at Lisa, she's the last one. She's like an immigrant twice over, right? Like me. So, she was born in Jamaica, because you could hear the accent every once in a while as she speaks. So immigrated to the US, and then from the US immigrated to Dubai. So I think that similar to the other ladies, to the Carolines and things, she does want to maintain a certain standard, a standard that she's become accustomed to, probably more so in Dubai than in the US. But at the same time, I think that because I believe it's related to being an immigrant twice over, that she also has this humility about her, that she is a little bit more down to earth. Yes, just like with the whole cast, she loves the glitz, the glamour. She likes to, if she feels at all attacked, or that somebody is trying to make her feel less than, she will remind you of, what she's accomplished and what she has. But there's something about her where it just doesn't come across like it's too aggressive in terms of trying to prove herself and trying to prove that she's made it. She doesn't give me that air, and that comes across with some of the other ladies. Like, they really want to show you, like, hey, I moved here and I became a multimillionaire, or I'm making this and I'm doing that, She just, to me, is sort of in between that space. And so I would say Lisa's probably an expat who's still trying to find her place, who's still probably trying to find her community, her tribe, and or trying to find a way to balance like between, because here's what I think with Lisa. I think as she's living in this opulence, when she, has her nanny come in, she can connect with that nanny in a way that some of the other ladies can't. Like when she sees the laborers, or because that was her people, that was the Jamaicans when she was in the US. So there is, I don't know, it's hard because it doesn't mean that, because she can identify with them to a level that she should try and connect with them or build a relationship. That would be false, right? That would be something forced. However, I think there's a softness that comes from her because of that. And that, I don't know. I'd like to think that that's similar. I'm not living the high life like Lisa or any of these ladies, but when I saw her home life and just the way that she spoke, it was reminiscent to me, and I was like, I get it. I get why you're this way, even though you're part of that same circle and you're doing a lot of the same things, but your interactions are a little bit different. And then this is, mainly outside of the group of ladies. When they're all together, they're all ratchet. That's the whole point. That's why we find it entertaining. But that is my observation of the Real Housewives of Dubai and how it relates to expats, and how this is like a mirror, a giant mirror for all expats around the world, even though the majority are not living these millionaire lifestyles. So that is it for this episode. Please let me know if you agree with any of these things, or if you have any other points or observations on how these ladies carry themselves, and, as it relates to expatriating or being an immigrant. Until the next time, be well.